You know how people say you'll never forget the exact moment your life changed? For me, it wasn't some dramatic car crash or a final screaming match. No, it was a Tuesday. A perfectly normal, boring-ass Tuesday, where the coffee machine was acting up, my inbox was flooded, and I had just sat down to a cold bowl of oatmeal at 9:43 a.m. when my phone buzzed. The message was from Sophie. Lunch today? Need a sanity break, LOL. Totally innocent, seemingly harmless. Except Sophie was my best friend. And my husband, Jason, he couldn't make lunch that day because of a client pitch. Let me rewind a bit. I'm Ava, 36, head of marketing at a startup in Chicago that thinks beanbags and bad kombucha make up for burnout and no 401k. Jason is our creative director. We met at work 7 years ago, fell into a passionate whirlwind thing that everyone swore would burn out in a year. Instead, we got married, bought a loft, and made brunch reservations like responsible adults. Sophie came into my life 4 years ago. She was the type of friend you instantly click with. Sarcastic, loyal, the person who knew exactly when to text shots or want me to key his car when things went wrong. When Jason and I had our first huge fight about kids, he wanted to wait, I didn't. Sophie was the one who showed up at my door with wine and that look that said, "Men are disappointments. Let's make a Pinterest board about revenge." So imagine my surprise when, 6 months ago, Sophie got hired as a content strategist on my team. Jason even recommended her for the role. I didn't think much of it. She was brilliant, creative, and we worked well together. Jason and we'd gotten past our rough patch, or so I thought. Things weren't fireworks anymore, but we still had good morning routines, inside jokes, and he always brought me my favorite banana nut muffin after gym days. Marriage, you know? But lately, Jason started pulling away. Not all at once, subtly. Like he was dimming a light slowly so you wouldn't notice the dark creeping in. Fewer texts, late nights, the old, "you're being paranoid" speech when I asked if something was wrong. I chalked it up to stress. We were both working 10-hour days. I was probably just tired. That's what I told myself. But when Sophie's lunch text came through, the same Sophie who'd bailed on our wine night twice in a row, the same Sophie who'd started wearing lipstick to work for fun, something just tilted in me. That's the moment my life changed. Not because I had proof, not yet, but because my gut, the one I'd trained myself to silence for years in the name of being a cool, low-maintenance wife, screamed loud and clear, "This isn't just about lunch." And I listened this time. So I smiled, replied with a heart emoji, told Sophie I couldn't make it today, but maybe Friday. Then I closed my messages, opened a blank Google Doc, and typed one word at the top of the page: recon. Because if they wanted to play games, I was ready to play too. I just had to wait for the right move. The first rule of revenge: never react. Strategize. Rage makes you sloppy. Silence makes you dangerous. So I played my part. I went to work. I laughed at Jason's dumb jokes. I commented, on Sophie's latest Instagram reel about her office girly essentials. I even hosted a wine night for our team the following week and let Sophie borrow my good stemware. And while they thought I was pouring Merlot, I was poring over data. Phone records, Slack message timestamps, calendar overlaps, VPN logins. I tracked more behavior than an FBI profiler. Here's what I knew. Jason had suddenly become very collaborative with Sophie. Meetings that used to be 30 minutes now stretched past 2 hours. Brainstorming turned into off-site lunch strategy sessions that somehow never showed up on the calendar. Sophie started coming in early. Not like beating traffic early, like his car's already parked and she's wearing perfume at 8:15 a.m. early. The company Amex had a $164 charge at an art supply store. Neither of them is in design, but Jason had once told me Sophie painted to relax. I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was just a creative partnership. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But here's the kicker. One Friday night, Jason told me he had to work late. Classic. I kissed him goodbye at 6:15 p.m., pretending not to notice the new shirt he put on. Then I waited. At 6:47 p.m., I pinged Claire, our front desk coordinator and the unofficial office oracle, and asked, "Hey, is anyone still in the building?" Her response? "Just Sophie and Jason. They left together a few minutes ago. Why?" Why indeed, Claire. But I didn't tell her the truth. I sent a winking emoji, told her I was being nosy, and put my phone down with shaking hands. I was done gathering breadcrumbs. It was time for a trail of my own. The next day, while Jason was at the gym, which is what we now call his Saturday morning escapades, I logged into our shared laptop. We weren't the kind of couple who locked each other out of devices. Trust, right? In his downloads folder, I found a single image, a candid photo of Sophie smiling at what looked like a hotel rooftop bar. The file name? sunset_us.jpg. Us. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I screen capped the file, the timestamp, and quietly emailed it to a new Gmail account I'd made for myself under a fake name. Just like that, I had what I needed. Next, I went shopping. Not for weapons, not my style, but for something far more lethal. An airtight reason to remove myself from the company project I shared with Jason. I met with our COO Monday morning and claimed emotional burnout from interdepartmental conflict. Technically true, just not the whole truth. I made myself disappear from their little work bubble without ever raising suspicion. And then I started planning the real move. The one where I'd pull the rug out so hard they'd land face first in their own lies. Because this wasn't just going to be a reveal. This was going to be an event. If you've ever hosted a corporate team building event, you know the secret isn't the food, the games, or even the icebreakers. It's the illusion of innocence. So that's exactly what I built. A harmless little night out. Marketing mixer, fall edition. I created a branded event flyer in Canva with orange leaves and bad puns. Sent out a group email like I wasn't secretly plotting the downfall of my marriage. Made sure Jason and Sophie were included, especially Sophie, who always RSVP'd to anything with free drinks. Everyone was so excited. "Finally, something fun," Sophie chirped in the Slack thread. I could almost smell the Chanel No. 5 through the emojis. Jason gave me a kiss on the cheek when I mentioned it at home. "You're the glue that keeps the team together," he said, unaware I was about to superglue his ass to a humiliation spiral. While he clicked away on his laptop, probably messaging her under a fake client name, I booked a private dining room at a swanky but not suspicious Italian place in River North. Classy enough for a work function, intimate enough to trap them like rats in a wine cellar. The theme? Trivia, trust, and tiramisu. I made little name cards, wrote up custom trivia questions, even ordered personalized team cupcakes with everyone's initials. I looked like a woman trying to boost morale. I was actually laying the groundwork for a social autopsy. Meanwhile, my burner Gmail account had been busy. I followed Sophie's private Instagram with a decoy profile. Name, Kayla B., fake travel blogger. And watched her post cryptic selfies from hotel bathrooms with captions like, "Love feels like velvet." Velvet, huh? Funny. Jason had once told me I looked best in velvet. Guess he recycled compliments like he did his design templates. Each night, I gathered more evidence. Screenshots, calendar overlaps, Slack message patterns. One message in particular made my stomach twist. "Sophie, same table next Friday?" I'll bring the sketchbook this time. Same table. Let me tell you, you don't know pain until you realize your best friend and husband have a regular cheating spot. But I didn't cry. Not then. I poured myself a glass of red, turned on Etta James, and drafted the opening line of my trivia night script instead. Then came the final piece. I asked Claire, the front desk goddess, to print out a batch of anonymous, fun facts for each employee to guess during trivia. I told her it was to build team cohesion. What I didn't tell her was that I slipped in one entry myself. Who's been using the office printer for private love letters? Bonus if you can name both authors. She laughed when she read it. Spicy, she said. Oh, who is it? Oh, no idea, I replied, sipping coffee like I didn't just inject nitroglycerin into the party. The days leading up to the dinner were a study in restraint. Jason had no clue. Sophie was practically skipping into work. I smiled, scheduled meetings, even gave Sophie a compliment on her presentation deck. It's sleek, I said, just like her betrayal. And then the night arrived. I wore a deep green silk wrap dress, the one Jason once called dangerous. I curled my hair, did my makeup soft but sharp. I looked like a woman in love with life. And I was, just not with him anymore. The restaurant was perfect. Dim lighting, a private room tucked just off the main floor, and a long, polished table lined with wine glasses, name cards, and hand-folded trivia sheets. The kind of room where secrets echo. Everyone filtered in around 6:45. Jason arrived with Sophie, of course. Not holding hands, not touching, but there's a kind of closeness cheaters have, like they're tethered by an invisible wire, and I could see it plain as day. He kissed me on the cheek. Habit, I guess. She smiled at me like we were still sisters. I smiled back like I didn't already have screenshots of their Slack conversations, including one where he told her, "Sometimes I forget which of you I'm actually married to." Yeah, I didn't forget. Dinner began with small talk, risotto, and too much wine. I let everyone get comfortable. I let Jason relax, loosen his tie, sip his Merlot. I let Sophie laugh a little too loudly at someone's joke. I let them both believe they were safe. Then I stood up and clinked my glass. All right, everyone, time for trivia. They cheered. A few groaned. Sophie mock-pouted. Don't make us look dumb in front of the new interns, she said. I smiled, flipping to my carefully curated trivia cards. I promise, nothing incriminating. Well, almost nothing. The game started light. Who's always microwaving fish in the break room? It's Steve. Always Steve. Whose cat once walked across their keyboard and accidentally sent a blank email to the CEO? Also Steve. That man lives in chaos. People laughed, guessed, sipped wine. Sophie leaned into Jason during one question and whispered something. He grinned. So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, here's a fun one. Who's been using the office printer for private love letters? Bonus points if you can name both authors." Silence. Total gut punch, deadweight silence. Sophie's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Jason blinked. Someone laughed nervously. "Is that real?" "Oh, it's real," I said. I pulled a manila envelope from under my chair. Inside, printed pages of Slack messages, the hotel reservation in Jason's name, and a photo, Sophie's, from that rooftop bar, captioned, "Best sunset I've ever seen." I laid the envelope gently in the center of the table like a crown of thorns. Jason paled. Sophie's face went red, then white, then something like purple. "Oh," I said, looking straight at her. "I guess you weren't expecting pop culture and polygraph night." A few people looked around, unsure if this was a joke or a breakdown. But I wasn't yelling, I wasn't crying, I was glowing. Jason opened his mouth. "Ava, we should talk." "No," I cut him off, calm and sharp. "You should listen. You had options, Jason. You could have talked to me. You could have worked on us. Instead, you chose her." I glanced at Sophie, who was now staring at her untouched lasagna like it might kill her. "And you both did it while sitting across from me at work. Week after week." He tried to reach for my hand. I didn't move. I looked around at my stunned team and smiled. "So, trivia's over, but I think we've all learned something valuable tonight." I picked up my wine glass, raised it, and said, "To transparency, both in creative projects and extracurricular activities." Then I downed it in one slow, steady sip. People always imagine finding out about an affair like it's a thunderclap, a phone call in the middle of the night, a lipstick on a collar, a credit card bill for a hotel room you didn't visit. But for me, it was a cough. A stupid, mundane cough on a stupid Thursday afternoon during one of our endless Zoom calls. Jason was working from home. Sophie had a migraine. I was on a client call with our design team when someone unmuted their mic for just a second, enough for me to hear a voice in the background. A sneeze, then a cough. Then Jason's voice. "Want me to heat up the soup, babe?" The call continued, people nodded, ideas were exchanged, and I sat frozen in my chair, my hand slowly curling into a fist under the desk. Sophie was out sick. Jason was home alone. But unless she'd hired a very specific soup delivery man, I knew exactly who was in that apartment. I didn't react. I finished the call, smiled, took notes. Then I quietly began the kind of research that only women with Wi-Fi, rage, and years of underestimated intuition can accomplish. Step 1. Devices. Jason's iCloud was connected to our shared iPad. He forgot this. Or maybe he thought I was too tech illiterate to notice. I wasn't, and I did. Messages, locations, shared calendar events, all sitting there like Easter eggs for a woman on the brink. Step 2. The burner. I created a new Instagram under a fake name, bland, believable. I followed Sophie. She accepted. Her stories were filled with wellness inspo and bad lighting, but one in particular stood out. A boomerang of her clinking 2 wine glasses on a balcony I recognized. Our old Airbnb in Milwaukee. Jason and I stayed there 2 years ago on a weekend trip. He called it our little escape. Funny. She was captioning it my happy place now. Step 3. The evidence folder. If you ever find yourself spiraling, wondering, am I crazy? Make a folder. Name it something innocent like taxes or wedding ideas, and start dropping in every suspicious piece of digital confetti you find. I did. Hotel confirmations, Venmo notes, Slack DMs that started with, "LOL, you're bad," and ended with, "Miss you already." A playlist Jason had made on Spotify called Her Skin. I didn't listen to it. I already knew it wouldn't be about me. Step 4. The assistant. Her name was Lex. She was young, bored, and dying for attention. One coffee chat later, and she was showing me how Jason had been blocking off calendar time labeled Creative Sync every Tuesday and Thursday. Time Sophie was also mysteriously marked in studio. When I asked Lex if she thought something was going on, she giggled and said, "Well, they sure do sync a lot." I smiled, filed it away. Step 5. The HR card. I got ahead of it, way ahead. Requested to be moved off our shared campaign with Jason, citing creative exhaustion and the need to avoid interpersonal conflicts. It was vague enough to be professional, but clear enough to signal I was reclaiming my space. HR approved it the next day. And just like that, I removed myself from their line of fire, while still holding the match. Everything they thought they were hiding, I already had printed, labeled, and chronologically sorted in a blue leather folder on my desk. I didn't need to catch them in the act. I was letting them walk straight into it. After trivia night, the silence at home was thunderous. Jason didn't come home that night. Neither did any apology. The next morning, he showed up wearing last night's shirt and a lie he'd clearly practiced in the mirror. It's complicated, Ava. I didn't argue. I simply placed a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, divorce papers, already notarized. A spreadsheet breaking down all assets. A printed photo of him and Sophie holding hands outside a hotel. Dated, time-stamped, GPS verified. You'll notice, I said, calmly sipping my coffee, I've waived alimony, but not dignity. I'm keeping the condo. Jason stared at the envelope like it was a ticking bomb. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look angry. That's what scared him. You can't be serious, he muttered. Dead serious, I said. And oh, I've already looped in HR. Your little creative syncs with Sophie? Violated company policy. His face dropped. They're doing an investigation, I added. Might want to prep your portfolio. His jaw tightened. You're blowing this out of... No, I interrupted. You blew this. I'm just lighting the exit. He tried the oldest trick in the book. Guilt. I thought we were forever, Ava. Forever doesn't involve hotel receipts and office gossip. It involves respect. And just like that, I turned and walked away, letting him stand there in his wrinkled shame. Later that week, I moved all his things into storage, left the keys with the building manager, changed the locks, and scheduled a cleaning service, because even metaphorical filth leaves residue. As for Sophie, she resigned before HR could finish their investigation. Word spread. Nobody asked questions. They just watched her pack up her desk like she was carrying a coffin. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. Revenge doesn't always have to be a show. Sometimes it's just paperwork, a cold smile, and a woman who refuses to be broken. A week after Jason moved out, was removed, I sent one last email. Not to him, but to the entire office team. Subject line: closure and cupcakes. The body read, Hi everyone. Thanks for attending the team mixer last week. It was eventful. In the spirit of transparency and moving forward, I wanted to share one last gesture. Check the break room at noon. With appreciation, Ava. At exactly 11:59, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. Lip gloss on, blazer crisp, heels unapologetic. On the break room table sat a dozen custom cupcakes. Neat white icing, silver sprinkles. At first glance, totally normal. Until you read the edible print on each one. Sync this. 404, love not found. Control plus Alt plus deleted. Don't at me, Jason. Every single one was a poetic roast in frosting. People lost it. Laughter echoed down the hall. Someone from accounting actually snorted. Claire, bless her petty heart, offered me a fist bump like I was a legend in a war movie. Jason didn't show up that day. Sophie? Ghosted. No farewell email, no plant left on her desk. Just an empty chair and a lingering scent of desperation. I didn't stay long. Just enough to leave a memory. One last wordless statement. I had not only survived, I had style. Before I left, I dropped a final cupcake on my former desk chair. One simple phrase printed on top. I win. Because I did. Freedom didn't arrive like a movie montage. There were no champagne bottles popping or dance parties in my underwear. It came slower, quieter, like waking up one morning and realizing the ache was gone. The first thing I did was reclaim my space. The condo, my condo now, had been holding its breath. So I exhaled for both of us. Deep cleaned the kitchen, opened the windows, lit every candle Jason used to say gave him a headache. I tossed his old hoodie, the one he wore on Sundays like a ritual. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I just released it all. Then I went on what I called my anti-morning leave. 1 week off work. No meetings, no notifications, no pretending. I rejoined my old yoga studio, the one I loved before I started rescheduling for his client dinners. I took a solo weekend trip to Lake Geneva, booked a room with a fireplace, and ordered room service like a queen. I read novels cover to cover, took long baths, wore face masks without an audience. And I let myself be selfish, something I hadn't done in years. The divorce finalized faster than I expected. I had receipts, evidence, leverage. Jason didn't put up a fight. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe HR breathing down his neck distracted him. Either way, the judge gave me the condo, most of the shared account, and, thanks to an airtight prenup, Jason got exactly what he deserved. Not much. Sophie? She disappeared. Word around the office was she moved for personal reasons. Translation? She got cornered by her own ambition and ran. No one cried. Not even her work BFF, who called me 3 days later and said, "Honestly, you deserved better." We all saw it. And slowly, I found joy again. Not the loud kind. The subtle, soul-deep kind. A Saturday morning coffee with no timeline. A walk without checking my phone. A glass of wine poured for myself, not to impress or perform, but to celebrate. People asked if I was dating. I wasn't. I didn't need a new man. I needed to fall back in love with myself. And I was. It started with a subject line. Can we talk? No sender name, just the email address. One I hadn't seen in months, but instantly recognized. j.andrews.creative@Jason. I was sipping coffee, halfway through editing a client proposal, when it popped up. I stared at the screen for a solid 30 seconds, letting the words hang there like a ghost I never invited back in. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Ava, I don't know if this is okay or not, but I needed to say a few things. I've been thinking about everything. What I did, what I lost. I don't expect forgiveness, but I miss talking to you. I miss you. I've been going to therapy. I'm trying to figure out how I became someone who could hurt the only person who ever really saw me. If you don't want to respond, I understand. But if you ever feel like grabbing coffee, I'd love to talk. Jason. Coffee? The man shattered our marriage like it was a damn IKEA bookshelf and now wanted coffee? I didn't respond. Not right away. I needed time. Not to consider getting back together, hell no, but to decide whether he even deserved a reply. 2 days later, he followed up, said he was working freelance now. Took a hit professionally, he admitted. I guess when your HR file includes inter-office affair and inappropriate use of company funds, doors don't open so easily. Oh, what a tragedy. I forwarded it to my evidence folder, not out of spite, out of self-protection. Then, a week after his first email, I ran into him. Literally. We both reached for the same turmeric hummus at the grocery store. Of all the damn things, turmeric hummus. He looked older, thinner, a little wrecked in the way that only guilt can ruin a person. He blinked, stunned. Ava? I smiled, small and unbothered. Jason. He laughed nervously. You look good. I am. We stood there, awkwardly, the hummus still in my hand. I made no move to hand it over. He cleared his throat. I meant what I said in the email. I know I hurt you. I was an idiot. I let everything good in my life rot, and you're the part I regret losing the most. I looked him straight in the eye and said, Then consider this your closure. You don't get another chance to break me. And I walked away, hummus in hand. After the Jason grocery store run-in, I thought that was the end. Closure, check. Vindication, check. Me walking away with the good hummus like a damn goddess, also check. But a week later, I found myself sitting on my balcony, tea in one hand, a fall breeze brushing my cheek. And for the first time in months, I wasn't angry. Not sad, just still. That's when I wrote it. A letter. Not to Jason, not even to Sophie. To me. To the woman I used to be. The one who believed love meant swallowing your needs. The one who ignored the gut feeling. The one who stayed silent, even when the silence hurt more than the truth. I wrote, You did everything you could. You loved fully. You trusted. You tried. And when it all fell apart, you didn't shatter. You sharpened. You chose yourself. This pain wasn't your punishment. It was your permission. To let go. To rebuild. To stop waiting for someone to see your worth. And to see it yourself. I sealed it in an envelope and tucked it into my nightstand drawer. Not because I needed a reminder. Because I wanted a receipt. A record that I'd survived. A week after that, I donated the last of Jason's stuff I'd hidden in a storage bin labeled Misk. It was mostly junk. A watch he never wore, a mug from our honeymoon he always said was too small. I kept none of it. My new life didn't need souvenirs. I joined a writing workshop on a whim. Met people who didn't know me as Jason's wife or the woman from that trivia night. Just Ava. Just me. One evening after class, a guy named Theo walked me to my car. Funny, sharp, bookish in a way that felt like comfort food. He said, You seem like someone who's had a story or two. I smiled. You have no idea. But I didn't flinch. I didn't panic. Because this time, I knew. I wasn't looking to be rescued. I wasn't looking at all. I was simply living. And if something new came along, it would have to meet me where I already stood, steady, unshaken, and whole. Because this isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about return, to power, to peace, to me.